So Tuesday, August 8th, the 7 a.m., there was a fire that was under control in Lahaina. And the crews that were assigned to that fire were able to contain it. They were able to put a bulldozer line around it, and they were able to walk the whole fire and extinguish the area within the fire. They sat on that fire till after 1 o'clock that afternoon with no activity on that fire. During that time period, the winds were so strong and they were blowing all over the place that multiple power lines were falling down around them. The neighborhood below them was being impacted by wind and that sort of thing. Later in that afternoon, about 3 o'clock, after they had left scene, another fire started in Lahaina. We're still investigating whether that was the same or a different fire. And all of our crews responded back to that same area. It was within 30 minutes from when it went to the brush that our firefighters had called for evacuations of the Lahaina Luna street area. Our firefighters had to reset and engage with the fire several times over the next few hours. And you can tell probably by some of the buildings that are still standing, those are the areas that they maybe reset in, and then they were fighting the fire. What was happening was the fire was moving through the neighborhood as fast as it normally moves through grass. And so while they were engaged in fighting two fires in front of them, 2 or 3 were catching on fire behind them, maybe a block away. So they would have to reset. At many points in the day, they were surrounded by fire. And at one point in the day while they were surrounded, our firefighters had to utilize a police vehicle to get out of the neighborhood and escape the fire area because the roads were so narrow by then with debris and fallen trees that they weren't able to drive a fire truck through the neighborhood.
Do you have the approximate time that the fire truck got to burn?
I don't. Yeah, I don't have any of that information yet.
To get an understanding of how quickly the fire spread, was there a point of acceleration when the fire shot down the hill, or did it take place over the course of an hour or hours to get down to the Front Street area?
So where the fire started in the grass area outside of Lahaina Luna, and it rapidly moved down the hill and into the homes. It wasn't a continuous fire area, it was spotting, and it was spotting over the bypass when the initial fire started above the bypass. So as it entered the homes, it was moving just as quickly. The best timeline that I can provide is that the fire started about 2:55 p.m. That's when we got dispatched to it. And there were people reported to be going into the ocean that evening at 9 p.m.
Was there any break in communications between the field and the firefighters in the field and the EOC at any point?
So fortunately, the EOC was on partial standby already days prior because of the wind event. The evening of Tuesday, just after midnight, the upcountry fire started, and that was an all hands on deck. The EOC was activated. We also called back for additional personnel who were off duty at that time to start upstaffing everything. There was constant communication from the Olinda incident to the EOC, and then throughout the morning of the morning Lahaina fire, as well as the evening Lahaina fire, or the afternoon Lahaina fire, there was constant communication back to the EOC.
For many in the Maui community, it wasn't apparent to the public just how bad and extensive the destruction was until possibly days that followed. Do you feel the gravity of the situation was known among the emergency team? Do you feel like it was communicated effectively?
So
on your end, you don't have to answer.
Yeah. So as far as the firefighters go, I know what they've told me, and that is that they were constantly engaged in structural firefighting through those neighborhoods, all the way down to Front Street and into adjoining neighborhoods. It was at that point that they realized the gravity and the size and this disaster, but they were so engaged in trying to help people, save lives, put out structure fires, that they didn't know how far away other crews were working on the same fire. Individual people, both community and firefighters, had to make decisions that they never thought they would have to make in their entire life. And the fire moving so quickly, the firefighters just naturally instinct, kicked in so that they would preserve life and would do anything they could do to preserve their firefighters' lives as well. And so when that crew was trapped and that firefighters' instincts kicked in to go get a vehicle that could get out through the narrow roadways, kudos to him for just thinking and being responsive and not being, stuck.
We're hearing that there were no airdrops on August 8th due to the high winds and that fire hydrants were running out of water. Has lack of water ever been a concern for the department? And in all of your years of firefighting, has a fire hydrant ever run out of water on a crew from Maui before?
So water is the lifeline for a firefighter to be able to do his or her job. The winds that day hampered our aircraft from flying throughout the day and could do no bucket drops. We were able to get an aircraft out to Lahaina, but then we had to ground it due to the high winds. Throughout the day, the firefighters did have water until the hydrant system was impacted. We don't know why or when or what caused that shortage of water, but our firefighters continued to fight fire with the water tenders and tankers that we had assigned to the incident. They also, throughout the days, were able to identify private water supplies that they were able to get water from and bring back to the scene.
The U.S. Fire Administrator was on Maui earlier on in this incident and provided a hypothesis early on what elements contributed to the fire, including strong winds, dry grass. Have you learned anything new in the last 12 days regarding potential accelerants or contributing factors other than wind or dry grass?
Yeah, there's nothing that we've discovered so far that fits in those categories. The wind was definitely the driving factor for this fire and moved it rapidly through the town. With gusts up to 80 miles an hour, the fire sometimes was jumping quarter mile or more.
Just on the topic of the morale within the department and just people having been through such a drastic incident, how is the Maui Fire Department team holding up, and is there any way that the community can help?
So our firefighters are struggling right now. There's no doubt about it. Many of them has lost homes of their own. Many of them have lost family homes. And many of them are multi-generational Lahaina families. So they've lost their whole town. It'll be a long road to recovery. They're going to need support from their family, from the community, from the department to get them through this. And everybody will heal at a different pace. What's important is to know that we are here for them. If they need help, we want to provide it to them to get through this difficult time. Mental health has been a very, very important topic to us over the last 4 or 5 years. And we'll continue to support them in any way we can. Everybody heals differently. And for some people, it's reaching out and asking for help. Some people, it's going to work. Some people, it's continuing to serve. And so it's just important that each person who's struggling right now finds what they need to heal. And that we give everybody grace and that we allow everybody the time to heal. We just have to be supportive of each other, both for our firefighters and for our community, because our community is grieving right now as well. And our firefighters are not only victims of what they dealt with that day, but they're victims of the whole disaster, and it's going to impact them for a long time.
Any words of encouragement, support, just from your perspective on how the team was able to get through these last 12 days?
Yeah, from day one till today, our firefighters have put their best foot forward, saving hundreds of homes and lives along the way. They continue to come to work, and I'm so proud of every one of them for doing that. It's easy sometimes when things get tough to just kind of walk away for a little while, but they've stayed engaged, they're continuing to serve, they're coming to work on their regular shift day, they're taking overtime days, they're volunteering at the points of distribution to help the community. Those are all ways that, that they're going to get through this, and I'm very grateful for each and every single one of them, for all they do and how much they support this community.